This is a video showing how to make a histogram on the TI calculator. The example is from Module 2A on page 27. This is one of the group work questions. So here's the question from page 27. We're given a table of data with information about serving size, calories, protein, carbohydrates, and fat from a Burger King menu. So question 1B asks you to make a histogram of serving size. And you can do that in Excel, or you're welcome to use the TI calculator. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do it on the TI calculator. So this is a TI-84. On the screen, the keys that you see on the calculator are down here. And then over here is the screen that you'll see on your calculator. So these are just the same keys you'd have on a TI-84. This is the TI-84 Plus. Any TI-84 should have the same layout, the same with the TI-83. If you check a calculator from the math lab, it'll be this same addition as I'm using on the computer screen. So the first thing we want to do is go into Stat, and we're going to choose Edit. So we're in the Edit tab, and then choice 1 is Edit. So you can type a number 1 or press Enter. And I've got some data in the list that I need to clear out. So I'm going to go up and highlight list 2. I'm going to press clear and see how it's L2 equals and there's nothing there. I'm going to press enter and that clears out the whole list. I also need to clear out list 1, so I'm going to scroll up and over. Make sure you highlight the L1 part. If you delete each number, it's going to go through the whole list and take a lot longer. I'm going to type clear, that clears out the list, and I type enter. So now all of my lists are clear. If you don't see L1, L2, and L3 up here, you want to go into Stat and go to Setup Editor and press Enter and enter again, and then that will bring back all of your lists. So if you are missing list 1 or list 2 here, make sure you go in the Setup Editor so that you've got L1, L2, L3 like you see here, and clear out any data just like we did. So since this is a histogram, we only have one list of the serving sizes. Those are measured in grams. So we're just going to type the numbers here in list 1. And it's going to take a little bit, but you can follow along on your calculator. So we'll start with the Whopper, 270, then 294. As we're typing the numbers, we want to think about the range. So we want to think about what's the least number we see here and what's the greatest number we see here. Now on my computer screen you see the key press history. It's not telling anything, it's just showing which keys I typed. In case I make a mistake, you'll be able to see it down there, but it's not necessary to know the key history. I always go real slow to make sure I don't miss any numbers. You could follow along with a ruler or your finger in the activity packet to make sure you're not skipping anything. And again, as we're entering the numbers, we're thinking about, what's the smallest of the numbers we see here? What's the highest we see? Because when we set up our window on the calculator, we're going to want to set a max and a min. So if we've already thought about what the max and the min should be, we'll be able to set up our window easier. Okay, so it looks like my minimum value here is 52, and the maximum looks to be 351. So those will be, values to guide us in setting our min and max. So let's go now into Window. And so let's set our min to be 55, and we could set our max to be 355. And then our X scale is going to be what the bins count by. So maybe we want to count by 50s. So if we do that, I'm going to say, let's set our X-min to a nice even 50. And let's set our X max all the way up to 400. And we're not going to worry about the Y scale. And then we want to go into second stat plot. See above the Y equals key here, it says stat plot. And we want to turn stat plot on, just plot 1. So we press enter, and plot 1 shows up, and we're going to press enter to turn it on. And then we have to choose what graph we want. So since we want to graph a histogram, this third choice that looks like a histogram is going to give us the histogram. And notice how once I select the histogram, all they need is the X list. If we'd been on scatter plot, it would have asked for an X list and a Y list. So the X list is set to L1, which is just where we typed our data. If you typed your data some other place, make sure you enter that list number here. But since we typed ours in list 1, the default is list 1, so we should be in good shape. And then the frequency we want is 1. We just want to count that list once. And now if we go to graph, we see what our histogram should look like. So when you sketch your histogram on page 27, depending on how you set your bins, it should have roughly this shape. Let's check and see what would happen if we set our bin size to be 25. So I'm going to go back to the window, and I'm going to change my X scale to be 25 and see if that changes our graph. So again, I'm leaving the X-min and the X-max the same and just changing the X scale to be 25. And see how that makes smaller bins here. And what that does is we can see the distribution of the histogram a little bit more. And this definitely looks like a right skew histogram or a right tail histogram because there's a few data out on the right side, but the peak is more in the middle. Let's go back to window and let's set our X scale to be 10. So this is going to give us really small bin sizes of 10. And let's see what happens that. So see how our frequencies are now shorter and our graph is more spread out. And here our bins are so small it's kind of hard to see the shape. So I think the better bin size was 25 or 50. So if we put it at 50 and go back to the graph, see how you can really see the peak in this bin, which goes from, let's see, this was 50, so this would be 100. So it goes from 101 to 150. Let's look at what if we made our X scale 100, meaning our bins are counting by 100. So we see here we end up with kind of bigger, wider bins, but we can still see the right skew. So let's go back to a bin size of 50. I think that is the best choice we've seen.